Today, we're going to talk about how this strategy generated 14x ROAS and $1 million. My name is Chuck. I've managed over $40 million in paid social media spend. Let's get into it. So, why it worked? Just to start off, this campaign actually had a few reasons why it worked. And there's a few things that lined up for it to build into that 14x ROAS. Now, this brand doesn't always get a 14x ROAS. It typically indexes like 8 and above, pretty high. But there was a lot of opportunity for this because the time of year matched up really closely with the products that they were selling. And they were also venturing into a new product category, which is also a major point too, because they had built this strong identity as a brand, their legacy brand, and they built a strong identity with their consumer base, and they're launching a new product category that they never had before. Their consumer base was not exposed to it. So it just kind of created this perfect storm for them exploding ROAS and generating $1 million. Just to go through why it worked. One, ideal pricing. The products were in the $200 to $400 range. The AOV was around $300. This is perfect for ad account algorithms because the difference in increase of CPA when you have say a $50 product compared to a $300 product or a $300 AOV. The difference in CPA that is most likely needed, cost per purchase that is most likely needed to be getting up to that $300 purchase, the revenue generated from that likely far outpaces from a ROAS standpoint comparatively to that increase in CPA compared to that lower price product. And that's why it's generally pretty hard to get a strong ROAS on products priced below $50. It gives the algorithm in the account more room to work with when you have a higher priced item. I'm not saying this is the only way, and it can definitely vary for every single brand as you do have different priced items and different things. And you should also factor in how you're kind of hedging against that for brands that do have lower priced products. One of the easy ones that come to mind is offering a subscription service. So ensuring that you can get some form of recurring revenue, knowing the lifetime value of your clients and your prospects that you're bringing in. Maybe you're breaking even on that front of the purchase, but your product is consumable. They're buying it again and again and again. Now, that just goes into the whole conversation of having to know your product and know your brand. But in this case, they're priced a little bit higher. The products are not as consumable. However, they have a lot of different offerings. So people can buy multiple products from this company at that around $300 AOV price range. What a lot of brands would be getting for, say, a $50 to $75 price item, they were getting on almost a $300 price item, just to put this into context. That's because these all work together. Now, moving on, they had a strong brand identity. The brand's an industry leader, they had strong awareness, and they're branching into a new product category. They were in a primed market and a new product. So they had people that they didn't have to get over the hurdle of brand engagement and awareness. They already knew them, and they're driving a new product. So everyone that was basically brand unaware, just to dig a little bit deeper into this, everyone that was essentially brand unaware, it was a very low percentage of people that were just completely brand unaware. Everyone was brand aware to a certain extent. They just might not have been necessarily brand engaged. They were aware that the brand existed and they knew the products from this brand generally. So they already got over probably like 25% of the initial touch points that are needed from the brand. But then when they appeared, then all it really took was just engagement touch points and then that end purchase. Some people just straight to that end purchase. And also the time of year lined up with this very nicely. Next is landing page correlation. A lot of times this is an afterthought, but the ads had a strong correlation to the look of the product and the landing pages. It's tastefully on brand for them, as in like they used similar fonts in the ad and the landing page. They used a similar color scheme from the ads and landing page and a similar kind of color breakout and layout of the ad creatives to the landing page. So it was very cohesive. And a smart thing that I think the creative team did on this, they basically played the ad to look almost like the landing page. Like everything that was incorporated in the ad was on the landing page, even the actual video. So I thought that was a really good touch because it just looked like from going ad to landing page, it just looked like it was one big continuation of the ad. And I think that's extremely smart. I think that helps relevance scores a lot as well, which we'll get into in a second. But I think anytime that you can be keeping that in mind with trying to make it as cohesive as possible can only help you. because then you will lower your bounce rates for people that land on the site. They're less likely to be bouncing off immediately. And it will also just help with cohesiveness because you can more easily convey the essence or the goal of what you're trying to get across about your product in the ad and then reinforce it on the landing page rather than selling the click on the ad and having to then kind of sell a whole new set or a whole deeper set of items on the landing page. If that makes sense, it's just a slight distinction that I think can really help, is having that correlation when you can do this. Next is timing. The ads were relevant to the time of year, and the products that they were focusing on were relevant to the time of year as well. And then last but not least, and this is honestly very important, in my opinion, is quality signals. Purchases provided high value signals, and additional audiences were modeled off repeat purchasers and high value buyers. So basically, high value buyers were segmented into different custom audiences, and then lookalikes were built off of those custom audiences. I think this was a very key part of the approach, and we added in a scaling layer on top of that. More on that in a second. So the audience strategy, going into that lookalike strategy here, this is what we call, or I call, a high value lookalike strategy. And in essence, what this is, it is creating custom audiences, as I just said, of your highest value actions for your brand. So that can be repeat purchasers, your high AOV value. So maybe go 20 or 30% above your average AOV and build an audience from that. High lifetime value lookalikes, or high lifetime value. So people that you know are your highest lifetime value customers from your first party data. Value-based purchase lookalike. This is basically just sorting the purchases in order of total value. So you have your highest priced items all the way down to the lowest priced items, and the higher priced items and higher priced purchases, or just cart value and AOV, are prioritized higher than the lower priced items and cart values. And then you have product category buyer lookalike. This is so that you can build specific lookalikes or specific audiences to the actual product category that's being promoted. This just makes it a little bit more relevant so that you're not just looking at a certain product category that could be falling into those higher value audiences. This is kind of taking the best of both worlds because you have people who have high average cart values, but then also specific product category buyers. So you're not just taking a lookalike of all purchases, you're actually looking at only people who bought that specific product category. And I know this one's probably the most basic. I think a lot of people in e-commerce kind of know that, but it's the combination of that with the higher value audiences that make it so effective in this case. You know, this is going to vary for every single brand and your data that you have. And obviously this brand had a high amount of purchase data to go off of, so we could really play around and do our thing. And then we had a retargeting audience with that. But why this is so effective also is that when you pull these lookalikes together, it is essentially taking the highest value impression as that ad is being served to the end prospective buyer. So it's always getting you the highest value impression based on all of these lookalikes, and that is exactly what you want. And then when they get the purchase, the highest value purchases are then fed back for the lookalikes, and they are adaptive based on those purchases, right? So you're not just taking it based on any purchase, it's only the ones that really are fitting these criteria of these lookalikes. And that's also why it's so effective, because in real time, you're getting that feedback. So when someone's making a purchase and it's above 30% X above AOV, then that's getting fed back into that custom audience for that lookalike, and it's then readapting that audience and remodeling it based on the new data that it's getting. You obviously need a lot of data to really be, and a lot of purchases to really be making this effective, but that's exactly what was happening here, and we use that to our advantage. Another thing you might be asking is, why not just run an ASC campaign? And I think in this case, for this specific use case, I'm not saying that this is the case for everything. I think you really have to feel out the brand, and you really have to get a feel for the amount of data that's there. There's no one way to be doing this, but lookalikes, when based on low quality signals or low signal volume, they're not as effective. And in that scenario, ASC is a great scaling tool. So when the brand doesn't have a lot of purchases in very short, when the brand does not have a lot of purchase data to go off of, lookalikes aren't going to do too much. But when they do, that's when you could really start creating these high value segments that we just showed before. And you can build out the first part of your strategy in lower funnel to be based on these high value lookalikes. As that hits its kind of capacity, then you could push out to that Advantage Plus campaign. That Advantage Plus ASC campaign essentially becomes your scaling, right? So it's situation dependent, but a high value lookalike gives a high quality, semi-scalable campaign, which can then feed into an ASC campaign for further reach. So those high value lookalikes, that campaign that you're putting all the creatives into, is essentially serving as your very targeted semi-scalable, because it is still scalable. Like I said, it's feeding back based on the purchase data that it's getting from that campaign in two ways, one through the lookalikes and one internally through the actual campaign optimizing. It's semi-scalable because it is limited to just those very high value actions and 1% lookalikes of those. So whatever those are pulled together is essentially the audience that you're limited to. Now it does adjust, it does readapt, but in some form, some capacity, you are limited to that lookalike audience size, which then is where ASC and Advantage Plus come in, because you can take the top performing creatives from that high value lookalike campaign, put them into an ASC campaign, and that's where you can get your broader scalable audience and really let it do its thing. And it helps with kind of separating out the audience. Potentially it limits overlap. It can limit overlap. Let me not say that definitively. It can limit overlap because that audience in the ASC campaign is so much larger. It's essentially everyone. And then it has its own criteria that it's basing off of. And you have a new campaign that's getting new feedback on the purchases coming through that campaign. And it's kind of doing its thing that way. So it's not necessarily eliminating potential overlap. It's just kind of limiting it and kind of making it part of the actual scaling strategy. So I don't want that to be confused that this is just like totally no overlap here between the audiences. There probably is, but it's just kind of thinking in terms of what is the highest potential reach of this audience to take these products all the way to the moon. All right. And then next thing that I want to talk about is ad quality and ranking scores, because this is also something that was focused on pretty big for this campaign in this instance. And I think that the cohesiveness of the ad to the landing page plays a big part in this. And this becomes a really important point to talk about. So ad quality and ranking scores, when available, because it's not available for all creative types on Meta at least, when it's available, you want to aim to improve quality scores. This can also be a way to track optimization. So you can track quality score over time. So you can do quality score in the last 7 days. You can do quality score in the last 30 days. But why ad quality matters, and this is directly from Meta. Your ad will perform better in the auction if it's a higher quality. Ads with lower quality rankings tend to cost more, which may reduce distribution of the ads and lead to fewer results. This is huge. This is really important because this is directly affecting your CPM. This has nothing as much to do with how your ad is actually converting in the end. This is strictly just how the quality of your ad is relating to the end user. And that can be affected by a few things. It can be affected by the copy of your ad, the headline, the images on your ad, the video, and all the content of the ad creative itself. And then also your landing page. Your bounce rates can affect this. The engagement of people on your landing page. So if they're all bouncing really quickly, that's not really a very high quality landing page in Meta's eye. And that will affect your ad quality score. And if you have a low ad quality score, it will increase your CPM because it will then cost more to show up in the auction, and you'll essentially get penalized, not even taking into account the conversion rate of your ad when someone's actually on your site. So that's why ad quality is so important. And this is why we look to have the best ad quality possible. And then we look to conversion ranking and engagement ranking from there. But those all kind of play into each other. Generally, you want a good ad quality rating, a good conversion rate ranking, and a good engagement rate ranking. You want to have those be the best possible, and you can look over time to see how it's changing over time. But these are important things to keep an eye on because they directly affect how you're performing in auction. So in total, the full strategy just to recap everything, pricing is the first point because that's just the product itself. They were optimally priced products. If you have a product that's priced too low, it's more difficult for ROAS. You don't have as much wiggle room to play with in your cost per purchase comparatively to the price of your product to actually be getting that ROAS differential. Where if you have a higher price range, the revenue can far outpace the increase in CPA, and the platform has more room to work to be getting that purchase in the end. Next is the ads and landing page. Strong visual correlation. This also helps to improve the ad quality score, giving you, in turn, a more favorable delivery. And then audience. Lookalikes from high value actions allowed for high intent audience to then feed into a more broad, scalable ASC audience. And just looking at this in total, this was essentially the campaign setup. You have your awareness and engagement objectives into your sales with high value lookalikes, and then into your sales ASC campaign, which is your scaling campaign. And that is exactly the overview of this strategy that generated a 14x ROAS and $1 million for this brand that did this. It was their top performing campaign, their top performing time period comparatively to their other years, and this completely killed it for them. And I think that it says a lot of important things because it still speaks to that, yes, there's a place for creating high intent audiences, and intent is going to be everything now. Yes, you still want to be leveraging ASC, all these broader offerings from the platforms as they push you towards them, but you have to think of them, in my opinion, as a mechanism for scaling, not just your go-to from day one. Start with high intent, start with high quality, and then scale up as you get more of those high quality signals. And I think that just shows it here in exactly what happened is you centered around high quality signals and then you pushed out to scalable, more broad audience. Learn how you can build a strategy like this for your brand. Obviously, every brand is different and performance varies greatly, but we will find the best strategy for your brand, whether it is this one or not. We adapt it to every business that we work with because everyone is different, but we have a huge database of these strategies that our team has done over time, and we have identified a lot of things that work and frameworks for how we can apply those. So book a call today, talk to me, talk to my team, and thank you for watching this far. I hope that was helpful, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you, everyone.